Hi, and welcome to Career View Mirror. I'm your host, Joyel Crawford, and I have a very special guest, Josh Horn, who's a partner at Fox Rothschild. Now, you're not just a partner. You're also the co-chair of the Cannabis Law part of the practice.
That's correct.
So how did you get that into that form of law? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, there's an interesting story that goes with it. So about, I guess it's 5 years ago now, Colorado had just gone adult use, and it just so happens my wife and I decided to go to Boulder for a long weekend. I was involved in this horrifically intense case that lasted for a few years.
Oh.
And so we went to Colorado, and we're walking around Boulder, and there's a dispensary, and we're like, well, why don't we just check it out?
Yeah.
And so we go in. We were the youngest people there, which
Wow.
I thought was interesting. And we go into the dispensary, and they take you in the back with the bar. It's called a bud tender.
Instead of a bartender?
Yeah, instead of a bartender. And he says, well, what can I do for you? And my wife and I looked at him and said, nothing. We just wanted to check this out
around, yeah.
because it is never, ever coming to Pennsylvania where we live. And so we left, and then my wife says, you know, maybe this cannabis thing is here to stay. Maybe you should think about going into cannabis law. And so that case finally ended about 8 months after that.
Oh my gosh.
And I decided I've been a trial lawyer for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. And I decided that maybe this was the time to reinvent myself.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're because I'm reinventing myself, I'm in the process of reinventing myself too. So, do you have like a plan? Do you map it out? Like, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my goal. You know, these are the steps I'm going to take.
Yeah, the first thing I looked at is, well, you know, I have to know something before you can't just say, hey, I'm a cannabis lawyer now.
Believe me.
Right. So I did have a plan, and what I started to do in spare time, this is going to sound a little geeky, but that's okay. In the spare time, I started reading statutes and regulations in states that had programs. I created, 30 or 40 different Google alerts.
Wow.
And so I get multiple Google alerts every day. And so I would just, it was constant immersion, just reading constantly and basically teaching myself a whole new area of the law.
Right.
And so it was kind of a logical progression for me because in the past I'd done securities law, which is a highly regulated industry. And all this is just another highly regulated industry.
That's
it
right.
just happens to be cannabis as opposed to stocks
It's
and bonds. Right, and money. Although there's plenty of money at issue, but it's just different.
It's different.
So I had a game plan, and I worked to try to meet people in the industry, and the firm was supportive of it.
That's really great. And I mean, like, did you have like a presentation prepared on how you wanted to move forward with the firm? Like, did you have like a proposal?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I want to do?
It was interesting. It was more ad hoc. And the firm didn't put me through the ringer of, you know, we want a business proposal and what are you going to do? Although we do that now,
right?
Because we have a marketing budget, and so we have to have a business proposal, and we meet very regularly. In fact, after we meet today, I have a call with our marketing person to go over things that we're doing. So it has evolved into a very, I don't want to say regimented, but structured practice group where I co-chair it with a fella in our Chicago office. And so, you know, we have a plan of what we're doing. But when we started, it was, you know, this is what we want to do. There we see a real need. And the firm was supportive of it. And once we started generating clients and revenue, they said, well,
that's really, that's it. That's the money. When you're hitting the bottom line, and, you know, that's where they're like, yes.
And from that point forward, it's been gangbusters.
That's fantastic. So it's you and a co-chair. I mean, do you have like a team of people on top of that?
We do. So there are 70 other people in the group across 28 offices around the country. Some people are much more active than others. I mean, right now it represents probably 90% of what I do. Other people it's less. But we have a core group of people. It's probably at least 50% or more of what they do on a daily basis. So if I need something in California, I can have somebody in Minnesota help me.
That's great.
Or in our South Carolina or North Carolina office helping me up here. So yeah, it's wonderful. There's a lot of support, and the group is very active.
So when you were educating yourself on cannabis law, how long did that take you to where you felt confident enough to say, you know what, I want to really just put my foot in this?
It was probably a good year, year and a half.
Okay.
And every day, the thing you need to know that's really unique about this area of the law, it evolves every day. And we joke around that a year in the cannabis law is like dog years. It's like 7 years in regular practice of law because things move so fast. So you're never fully fully comfortable because things are changing so much. But it took like a year and a half to really get comfortable with how other states were doing it. I started doing some projects and got more and more comfortable, and then just one client led to another client and so forth.
Have you found like any, are you finding now that it's kind of on the rise, cannabis law is kind of, everyone's talking about it. Have you found that certain law schools are offering courses in cannabis law?
There are schools that are offering courses, and in fact, and there's undergraduate schools that are offering courses. There's one at Stockton University here in New Jersey that I did a class on. I helped somebody, a friend of mine, who's teaching the class. And I think law schools are offering it. I don't know if it's a semester program or a part of a program, but I know schools are offering it. I think in Michigan there was a law school that was offering it. But it's undergrad. There's a number of schools that are offering classes in undergrad. I may be doing a program with the Fox Business School at Temple in cannabis space. So we'll see.
That's great. That's terrific. I mean, just to know that like when you were coming up in your career, that this is where you were. Did you have any idea that this is what space that you'd be working in?
What I joke around with people is that if I would have been asked 25 years ago, that when I started practicing law, that I'd be sitting here today talking about cannabis law, I would say, well, you must be smoking pot.
That's awesome.
So no, it was never my wildest dreams that I'd be doing this, but that's okay.
And what got you into law? Like how did you get into this field, this career?
Well, to become a lawyer, I think years ago, I took a couple law classes in college and really liked it. I like the idea of helping people and solving a puzzle. I always think of the practice of law as a big puzzle.
That's true.
And you try to take the pieces and fit them together as best you can to help a client. That's how I think I got into it. And then I was a trial lawyer for most of my career, and I still do it, but not as much now. It's just different. Yeah,
see, I'm obsessed with Law and Order and all of the franchises, so that's what I thought law was, just that constant, like, no, objection, and, very dramatic.
It's very rare. Well, in criminal cases, it may be, but I didn't do criminal work, but in the civil context, the trials were very rare. It's looking at documents, now electronic documents, millions of pages of documents. I mean, it's just, it's different. It's not what people see on TV.
So it's not like what's on television. I mean, are you studying nonstop? I just imagine you reading lots and lots of books and having to have a really good memory.
That's true. And so my wife jokes with me because she's an avid reader. She says, "Well, why don't we read at home, for relaxation?" I'm like, I read all day long.
It's like work.
It is. So either I'm reading on the computer, working on documents, or reading statutes or regulations, or expert reports, or just transaction documents. It's just constantly reading, and that's what it's all about. And so I don't like necessarily reading for pleasure, although I love reading.
Yes.
But it's
not your bag. Not your bag at all.
I need a quick fix.
So, how long? I wanted to know, how long have you been practicing law?
It's 25 years. Actually, it's longer than that. 1993. It's 26 years, and so I'll be 27 years this year.
Wow, that's a grown adult child.
It is, I know. It's funny because I've been at the firm for 23 years.
Wow.
And, and I joke around, when you're a teenager, you can't wait to turn 21. And it takes forever. And then I've been at the firm for 23 years, and now there's young associates who are younger than I've been at the firm.
Wow.
So it's a bit...
That's a bit mind-blowing.
It is a bit mind-blowing. And when I'll have a project with a young lawyer, and I'll say, well, I had something like that in 1998. And I'll say, well, I was in kindergarten.
Oh. Or I wasn't even born
Right,
yet.
or I wasn't right. That's coming.
That's the worst.
But that's okay. Looking back, I remember when I was a young lawyer at the firm, seeing the older lawyers and thinking, well, what did they think? It was kind of so now I'm living it.
Now you're that.
Right.
And you're a partner, so
Correct.
tell me a little bit more about that hierarchy, because again, I've watched Good Wife,
Right.
so I'm like obsessed with, I know how this all works, but that's on television. So how does that work? How do you become a partner?
It depends on the firm. I can tell you at our firm, at least when I came up for partner, you had to be an associate for 8 years or 5 years at the firm, but 8 years in practice. And I came to the firm from another firm. And then there's a committee. So you get vetted by a committee at the firm to decide whether or not they will then recommend you to management.
Oh my gosh.
And then the management committee then votes on whether you should become a partner.
Is there a lot of politics? Are you lobbying for this role, taking people out to lunch? Again, I'm Good Wife.
Right.
Reference.
Not as much as maybe it used to be, which is why they created this subcommittee. So there wasn't as much politics, but certainly there is, because there's more senior lawyers have people who helped them with their careers. They want to help push them forward through the partnership. But nothing like me taking people on the committee out for lunch. That wouldn't have flown.
That would be bribery.
That would not work. And it's about the numbers. And,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's your productivity and business you bring in the door from existing clients or new clients, and so that's what they look at.
Are you interviewed? Do you have to is a panel
Correct.
interview?
So there was a two-step process. One, I had to submit a memorandum, which was detailing, we have a partnership criteria, and so I had to detail how I met all the criteria in my memo, and then I had to appear before the committee and be interviewed.
Oh my gosh. That must have been, how many people were in the interview room?
At that time, I think it was 10 people.
10 people.
Yeah, maybe more.
I would have lost weight in my suit. I would 10 people. A panel interview is
Right.
very intimidating.
It is, but they're people who I knew and know,
that's
so it
true.
wasn't so intimidating. And I do public speaking for professionals.
That's right.
So it was intimidating, because there's this Albert Brooks movie with young lawyers who come up now for partner. I say, this is the movie you have to watch to put it in the context, and it's Defending Your Life.
Defending Your Life.
Yeah, by Albert Brooks movie with Meryl Streep. It really captures the whole
The
process.
whole essence of becoming a partner.
Because you're basically defending, your existence.
That's very
at
true.
the firm.
But that's exactly what it is. When we talk about interviewing and knowing your numbers and knowing what value you bring to the organization or
Right.
to the firm, and being able to do that astutely. We're going to talk a little bit more about your history and how you came up into your career after this short break.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write. The ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind the scenes footage, previews, and more.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me. Thanks, Liz. A woman without A lot of time.
Whether you're
Hi, and welcome back to Career View Mirror with my guest, Josh Horn. And we were talking about the rigors of becoming a partner and getting into cannabis law and your path into being a lawyer. And is there any type of myth, because again, I keep my reference points are all
Right.
television. I do have a friend who's a municipal court judge, but again, it's always, around television. So, but are there any myths about being an attorney in cannabis law that you think people might believe that aren't really true?
Sure. I think the biggest myth is that we're all sitting in my office smoking pot on a daily basis. That's not true.
It's not happening.
I think the more serious myth is that people who are in the business are just old hippies who never stopped smoking pot and listening to their Grateful Dead tapes from the 1960s. Although there are people who fit that mold, but it's a very sophisticated business. It takes a lot of capital to run one of these businesses successfully. And it's very sophisticated finance because you can't get money from banks. Typically, because banks are not, actively engaged in the cannabis sector. So I think people think and then people also think it's, well, if I get a permit to sell cannabis, I'm just going to print money. It's a very difficult business to be successful at. And I think people have this misconception that it's an easy way to make money. And in practicing law now almost 27 years, there is no easy way to make money.
No, there is never an easy way to make money.
And so I think that's the biggest myth.
I think that's a good point. And yes, of course, the first assumption is there, but it is important that when you're building a business that you understand the all the different steps and the legality piece, because you just can't open up shop. It's not a lemonade stand.
No.
This is a big deal.
And the issue we find with some clients is they got into the business when it was a lemonade stand. And so now when it comes to do a large transaction, a merger and acquisition, their structure is a mess. Because they didn't think about when they were forming 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago about the transaction that's going to happen in 2020 or 2019. And so they just didn't do things that a widget business would otherwise have done.
Right. Their receipts, non-existent. Bookkeeping on the back of a napkin, probably.
Yes, I mean, you have all those types of things. Deals on a wink and a handshake, and no partnership agreements. I mean, it's a very. So the biggest, some of the biggest things we're doing is fixing people's shops from years ago so they could be positioned to do different things going forward.
Excellent. So I'm going to shift perspective now. We've talked about the career piece, and for folks who watch the show, I always talk about the life piece, the life beyond the career. So what's your why? What keeps you going, Josh?
Other than stress? No, I'm joking. I think what keeps me going is I'm doing something fresh and new and exciting and cutting edge. I talk with people about this subject. One of the things in the practice of law, you have very few opportunities to create something out of nothing.
That's true.
And here is a whole body of law that people at my firm and other firms are creating something out of nothing. And so that's what gets me going, and it's exciting, and I work with neat clients and who I'm friendly with, and it's just a lot of fun.
That's terrific. And do you get to travel a lot?
It ebbs and flows. Actually, a year and a half ago, we put on a conference in Tel Aviv, a cannabis conference. So that was our biggest trip. But there's a national conference I was just at in Las Vegas. We put on our own conference in San Francisco last month. And we're going to be doing that again in Chicago and New York in the next year or so. So there is some amount of travel. I have a client who's in Chicago, so I've gone out to see them and their operations in Chicago. I've gone up to upstate New York to see their operations in upstate New York, because it's hard to service a client if you don't go to their business.
Yeah, you got to see what it looks like.
That's exactly correct.
Check under the hood, so to speak.
Exactly. So there is some travel, but in today's day and age, you don't need to necessarily travel so much to meet people.
Very true.
With video
You can
conferencing.
do things virtually.
A lot of virtual.
And now with contracts. You can e-sign things
Correct.
and everything, so you don't have to worry about.
Everyone's sitting around in a room.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's so cool. What would be one of the things that you do to relax? I mean, like, you said you jokingly said that you run on stress. I do too. On fumes, that
Right.
stress fumes. But what do you do to relax?
Well, I try to come home every night and have dinner with my family now. I didn't used to do that. So that's a big step that I've taken. I try to exercise. My wife's a personal trainer, so
Oh,
she
wow.
helps push me along.
Oh my gosh.
And spend time with my kids, who are getting older, and when they're around, it's important to spend time. So that's how I really relax now.
Do you read? I mean, well, we know you don't read. So, do you watch any TV? Do you have any hobbies other than working out?
Exercise. We like to go out to eat. That's a big thing we like to do, as I can tell. But I will read. I just it's just not at the top of my list.
Yes.
And we're like Netflix and Amazon junkies.
Yes.
So we'll find shows and just binge watch.
That's fantastic.
So my wife and I do that quite a bit.
Yes, binge watching.
Oh, it's
Any
wonderful.
favorite shows that you like to watch?
Oh boy. Well, now boy, there's so many.
There's so many.
Yeah, there have been a lot.
We've got a queue too. We've got a few that we need to catch up on.
Yeah, we Making a Murderer, which was that's a law one.
Riveting,
Yeah, that
yes.
was interesting. That was one that we watched both seasons of. We just watched one about Henry Lee Lucas, who was a purported serial killer. There was a documentary on that, which was interesting. We watched The Spy, which was a drama series on Netflix about an Israeli spy who was embedded in Syria.
I read about that.
Wonderful. Sacha Baron Cohen played the spy.
Really?
You wouldn't think
Is
that
a straight roll?
straight role. You wouldn't think.
What?
I know the craze. I mean, having seen Borat,
We've seen a lot of his comedic stuff, but I've never thought of him as a straight
that was
actor.
The Spy. Highly recommended.
Okay.
And then we also recently watched The Report. That was about. It was a report done by the U.S. Senate over the alternative interrogation techniques after 9/11. So it was very fascinating. So those are some of the more recent ones that we've watched. But those are, we'll find a series. And a lot of times, either my wife will have seen something in a magazine or friends or people she works out with who say, "Oh, we watched this show," or we'll just go on to Netflix and flip around like, "Wow, this looks interesting."
Or they always feed
Right.
you things. This looks good for you.
Based upon what your
Right.
prior viewing is, because I'm sure they have some quant that's figured it out.
I'm gonna have to look up some of these ones that you suggested.
The Spy was really.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
very good.
I'm gonna have to. The Spy. Straight acting.
Yes, I know that was really. He was wonderful.
That's fabulous. I mean, speaking of that, though, I mean, would you have, when you're watching some of these things, do you sometimes have a hard time shutting your brain off from work, like when you're watching it, or are these so far away from workish stuff that
It's
you can
incredibly difficult to shut off.
Okay.
And the biggest problem with that is the smartphone. And because clients, come to expect you to be available 24/7. So it's very difficult. But what I've tried to do now, when my wife and I are watching a show, is to not look at it.
Yeah.
I still have it in the room, but I don't look at it unless I really have something that's an emergency, and I let my wife know.
Right.
Just so
Come
we
on
can.
call.
Right, literally on call, which happens from time to time. Just so when we're together, we're actually together.
Right.
But that's the biggest challenge.
It is. I have to attest to it, with the holidays and everything. I'm trying to disconnect.
Right.
And it's not going too well for me. I have one more week of trying this disconnection, taking the app off of my, the Facebook app,
Right.
the email app off of my phone. But it's just like a habit.
Right. It has become habit.
Yeah.
My wife and I were talking about that yesterday, that you don't even realize you're checking Facebook on your phone. You're
No,
just doing
it's
it.
just, it's like almost, and then I find that even if I'm not on Facebook, I'll scroll whatever it is, that, like news. Now I'm
Right.
I'm trying to get just some kind of information. It's a habit. I actually started putting my phone in the bathroom to disconnect, because when we went to Paris on our honeymoon.
Oh, nice. Wonderful place.
I had yes, and I was like, I need to put this away.
Well, a year ago this past September, my wife and I went to Paris, and so the deal was, I could look at it in the morning and look at it at the end of the day. And I try to not look at it during the day while we're out and about.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It's difficult.
So just, I'll get 50 emails in a couple of hours.
Yes.
And just to have to go through that. And a lot of them are these alerts that I talked about, but there's a lot of them that are serious, so it's...
Like client-based.
Correct. It's very difficult to keep up with everything. And that's the problem, because it's... In this day and age, it's instant everything.
It is, and also instant everything and instant expectation that we're going to respond, and especially if you've got like you're international, the hours are different.
Well, I have clients who joke with me because I get up at 4 in the morning, and I'll start responding to emails from the night before at 4 in the morning, and the joke has become with some clients that they get upset if they don't get an email from me at 4 in the morning.
So now you've set that expectation.
I know, but it's very tongue in cheek. But I'm like, oh, okay.
All right, yes. So, what would be 1 or 2 like lessons learned that you'd like to share with your past self, like any types of words of wisdom that you'd give to your younger self?
I think. Not be afraid of taking a chance and being confident in your abilities.
Always be confident.
Always.
No matter what, no matter how scary it is.
Correct, because you can't be right all the time.
That's true. Well, you haven't met my mother.
You haven't met mine either. But you just have to be willing to take a risk and a chance and have faith in your abilities. Right. And if you're willing to put the time in and work hard, things do work out.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you so
much
for being here. Now, how can we find you? Like, how can we, obviously we can Google you, but where can we directly get in touch with you?
So I'm a partner at the Fox Rothschild law firm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it's at 2000 Market Street.
All right. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much
for
being here.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And thanks for watching us, everybody. And we're on Mondays at 1:30 p.m., so we'll see you again. Take care.